We have a co-founder of Insurtech Association of India, Mr. Prerak Sethi. Good morning, Prerak. Thanks for joining in. And I directly shoot some questions to you. Okay. So the hot word, the keyword, whatever we can say. Okay. And it was like AI, ML a few days back, and now it's Insurtech, the fintech. So, how do you think this insurtech word and the insurtech world as such will be impacting the insurance industry? Okay, positively and negatively both. Okay, when I say the insurance industry, I mean all of it, that is the health, general life of it. How do you think this world of insurtech is going to impact?
Ganesh, thank you for having me here. Really, really appreciate it. So, Ganesh, if you look at what's actually happened in the insurance sector, right? Insurance and pretty much every single industry in our lifetime over the last 10, 15, 20 years has been impacted by technology. So it's not just the insurance sector. If we pick up manufacturing, consumer goods, pretty much every facet of our life, right? Travel, it's been impacted by technology. But I would especially say that the insurance sector has a major role with the kind of impact that technology companies can have. And when I say technology, I just don't mean technology, I also mean technology and data in terms of how we operate as an industry. So if you look at the insurance industry, right, we are a business built of understanding and managing risk, which is our understanding of data. So the insurers that have differentiated themselves over the last 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 decades globally have been the ones that have been able to take data. They've introduced actuaries into the mix, and the actuaries and the underwriters have gotten together to analyze that data in more detail than their competitors. And that's how they've been able to price risk. And correspondingly, they've been able to actually differentiate the kind of products that have been available in the market, right? Basically. So the quartile of returns, if you look from insurers that have performed incredibly well versus the ones that are in the middle of the pack versus the ones that are low, sometimes tends to be their understanding of data. And then distribution becomes the other important facet within insurance, right? How do you end up distributing? So with what's happened over the last decade, InsurTech, or the intersection of technology and data with insurance, there's a major change that we are seeing in India and globally. The reason for that is actually obviously, right? The kind of data that's now available, the kind of data that's available over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years has just exploded. The data that's available in terms of us as Indian citizens or SMEs in India, the kind of data available can now be used by insurance companies to do much more granular underwriting, risk management, also use that data in terms of pricing, also use that data in terms of servicing and claims, right, from our side. So there's a major impact that we've seen from within the sector as it's come up. Now, the kind of insurtechs that have come up, right? These are again technology and data companies that are saying, "Hey, we'll work in the insurance sector." The term insurtech is getting used in many different ways. There are insurance companies that are calling themselves insurtechs. There are distributors that are calling themselves insurtech. There are pure play technology companies that are calling themselves insurtech. So these are all coming together and saying, hey, how do we impact the value chain of insurance in India? But with us being a tech and data first DNA from the get-go. So the impact is already seen in life insurance, health insurance, general insurance, across pretty much every single sector, right? That's actually happening. And we're seeing the impact come in from our side. So I'll say major impact coming, especially in India. I think in some of the other countries, right, there's been bigger kind of evolution over the last 2, 3 decades. But with the kind of penetration problem that we have, especially on the non-life side, insurtechs are going to have an amazing role to play to get going. Just simple, right? 1 second. So what I'd say is, Ganesh, also if you look back, right, India is a country of low ticket sizes and high volumes. So I would go on a limb and say we need insurtech more than a country like US, Japan, Singapore, or Dubai. They can all serve the cost of servicing by having human beings. But if you don't introduce technology into the mix today, what we'll end up finding is we will not be able to get to the last mile of the penetration problem. I'll pause it.
In fact, this part gets me to one more question. But before that, I asked anything negative which you see. This is the positive. It is a negative impact also of the insurance.
Yeah. A couple of different things, right, that tend to happen. One is obviously, I think the regulator is doing a great job, Ganesh, and everybody around the world is thinking about the impact of technology and data on bias. So as insurtechs are kind of coming up and models or AI models kick in, what we've got to make sure is that there's no bias in these models, right? As we're constructing them to not, bring down the availability of insurance to specific segments versus others. So that should not happen because the human touch goes away. That's one element of this. The second element of this is, with insurtechs coming, I will say, I hate to say this, but there will be an impact on jobs, right? So the world, again, nothing to do with insurance, nothing to do with India. We all
Yes,
seeing the
I
impact
get
of AI on jobs. So we all turn around and say, hey, how do we've got a large population, we've got a large segment of youth, how do we get them more meaningfully and gainfully employed, especially if we put in more automation as a philosophy. So I always wonder, right, as a completely separate question to say, how will we get more jobs, basically for for everybody here in India? Yeah.
True. Uh, you mentioned about low ticket size of India and the high volume, of course, with 140 plus crore as a population. But I don't know, it's incidental, it's unfortunate, or whatever you can say, the way at least the life insurance industry has been going around, even on the health side to some extent. It's the high ticket which is trying to be sold. The regulator is also trying to publish. I remember in 2001 when the insurance industry got privatized, the regulatory report used to talk about some assured and some insured. Now it talks about premiums. Okay. So for the past 2 decades approximately, we're talking about premiums. So there's a rat race of premiums. So every company is talking about 60,000 premium ticket size, 1 lakh premium ticket size, 40,000. कोई 2,000 3,000 की बात नहीं कर रहा है. So
Yeah.
it's at least on the life side, as I said, and to some extent on health side also. Doesn't it go against what you thought or what you think or what you believe as India is low ticket and high volume? And that is what is going to impact InsurTech. Probably that's already impacting. What we saw in the telecom sector probably is the lesson where
Yeah.
10 rupees ka recharge also worked. So are you trying to hint on that side? And probably is that the gap between the InsurTech and the real insurance which is happening today?
Ganesh, it's a great question, right? So if we look at the evolution of the Indian insurance market, right, and I pick up health insurance and term
Yeah.
life or protection in the life insurance for a minute. Over the last 23, 24 years, as the industry has evolved, we've had a set of private companies that have come up. The first wave of companies that have come up, they've done a great job of educating and building awareness in the market, right? They've gone out, they've gone to customers, and they said that, look, there's a product, within insurance, there are many different types of risks and many different products kind of available. Now, as I've done it, right, and earlier there was less technology available, right? 15 years ago, 20 years ago, there was less technology
True.
available. So if I was a private insurer and the CEO of a private insurer, I would look at the segments that were profitable to serve. And these would tend to be, the high income, urban tier one, city, professionals, right? HNIs to serve. So they did the right decision making by going after those segments, right? Because they said the cost of servicing these customers is just so high today, right? Basically. So let me go after the high value customers. But penetration problem, as you look at, comes from the missing middle, comes from the poor and the vulnerable. And they're the ones who also actually, more importantly, probably need insurance, right? They're the ones who require health insurance cover. They're the ones who require term life protection cover, because any incidents in that family can lead to them going below the poverty line, right? And they're the
True.
ones actually challenged. Now, the advantage of technology, Ganesh, can come from us now saying using technology interfaces. Everybody's got a mobile phone, right? Even poor and vulnerable families have at least one smartphone in the family. That's actually what we find. That how do we use technology, points of contact with these customers to now bring on board smaller ticket size, sum assured products that are appropriate for these customers very, very quickly, that they can buy rapidly. These same customer segments, the missing middle, the poor and the vulnerable, are
Yes.
on WhatsApp. They're watching YouTube videos, right? They're very used to actually consuming OTT content, right, at the point of time over their phone. So the appropriate sum assured through using technology, bring those interfaces to these customers, I think becomes a critical link towards boosting penetration. And that's what I also mean by low ticket sizes, high volume, right? The 10 rupee sachet cover was again the same one that
Yes.
was getting used by these customers. The postpaid connections of the HNIs in the insurance industry, also we've covered HNIs, right? Enough products available, enough companies available to service them. But to go after the missing middle, going after the rural population, we've got to make sure that we come up with new constructs around insurance product. What are the touch points from a technology standpoint that we can use to get to them? The beautiful thing, Ganesh, I think, just in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of advancement in AI, Gen AI, for example, right? And Gen AI, even for, say, converting from English to Malayalam, Marathi, Kannada, Telugu. So I think one of the points of innovation we may see in the next 12 to 18 months is insurance companies, insurtech companies can collaborate together and take content from one language to other vernacular languages very quickly.
Yes.
And this can be insurance content for awareness, for purchasing products, for risk management, that we're able to disseminate through our YouTube and our WhatsApp very, very rapidly, right? And those are kind of steps that are actually maybe required over the next 12 to 18 months for us to boost awareness and subsequently penetration in the market.
So since you're already on the Gen AI topic, so Gen AI is again a hot thing, very hot thing. In fact, उसमें भी voice आ गया है, is heavy, and so how do you think that's going to impact the healthcare sector and the health insurance industry mainly?
So Ganesh, Gen AI will not solve all problems. So in spite of
Yeah,
whatever all the reports say, what everyone will say, it will not solve every problem. But may I just say that the advancement in the kind of models that are available coming out for Gen AI versus what were even available 12 months ago versus what was available 3 to 4 years ago, right? From an AI standpoint, has seen a significant uh, uh, uptake in the quality of the output
yeah,
that is coming out. Just to give you some numbers, right? In a couple of technology teams that I've seen, the efficiency of their technology teams, which is engineers, has gone up by 25-30% because they're using Gen AI for coding, right? Actually, to support them on the coding side. So that's a
correct.
kind of efficiency that we've seen. Now, when we
Efficiency.
pick up Gen AI for healthcare and health insurance, I think what we'll find is the models, whether it's a open AI model or a Llama or basically a Claude, anything coming out of the box, the kind of results that it is providing out of the box, right, which is one engineer training these models or two engineers training these models, are actually amazing. So India, again, has a lot of healthcare data. The healthcare data that's coming from our primary care clinics, secondary, tertiary care clinics, it's structured, unstructured, semi-structured. The quality
Yes.
of data is incredibly poor. So because the quality of data that's coming has been incredibly poor, the insurance industry and healthcare industry has not been able to standardize underwriting, claims, say hospital care, right? When a policyholder walks in and they want a standard treatment of care, right? By the way, from the hospital, all of that has not happened because the quality of data has been poor. So one, we'll see Gen AI models actually improve or help improve the quality of care with a human in a loop, right? Basically, so human being the final adjudicator, right? We are not completely removing human beings for a minute,
Yes.
but the human being getting now the data prepared in a better way using Gen AI models. That is, step number one. Number two, when that's done, when it comes into underwriting and claims and healthcare orchestration or care delivery, we may find that a lot more standardized data will now be available to hospitals, insurance companies to collaborate together to say, hey, how do we focus on the quality of care for the policyholder, right? Actually, so those become important ideas. So Gen AI models for uh, pulling in data, improving the quality of data, putting in medical coding standards, putting in standards of care, putting in treatment of care, right? Basically, was all now much more simple to do today versus what it was
True.
even 24 months ago. Again, healthcare and health insurance and insurance are highly regulated topics. So I want to be very cautious here, right? As an industry, what we have to do is make sure that we are in regulation in every single way, and we cannot
Yes.
give poor advice, right? Actually. So the role of human beings, the doctors, the underwriters, the claims adjudicators, is not going away, but all of the Gen AI is going to power them up significantly through co-pilots going forward, right?
I
Basically,
think I
that's the
have to
power
be
that's
in
going
this
to come.
session for the uh, employment part of it, so that can give some comfort to people probably. Like, I think that's going more
I,
towards that.
I think employment will change, Ganesh. Yes, it's about to come. I think some of the changes are going to come, right? Basically, it's something that we've got to accept, right? Basically, with automation,
I
when there's
understand.
automation all around. Having said that, I think it's going to have a positive impact on the health insurance and healthcare sector in India. Just this availability of data can result in better treatment, right? Which is what we should look at. So we look at this idea and say, as an insurance company, an insurer should have better improve the health of its policyholders, improve health outcomes for its policyholders. I think changes the game completely on how, as an industry, we can think, basically.
Okay. Since you are on this piece, this brings into one of my sensitive areas always, the EHR. Okay. When we talk about electronic health records, okay, we talk about technology, we talk about data, we talk about a lot of other stuff, AI, etc. But do you think the EHR is going to be reality soon? Because one is the health insurance industry and the healthcare industry or the hospital industry. I take these three as three different entities. Are they talking to each other? One. Okay. And is the EHR likely to be a reality according to you? Because there are over 1 lakh doctors sitting across different corners who just have a piece of paper coming as an OPD with no records. the where I'm coming from is there are two parts. One is, of course, the EHR. We talk about the probability and possibility. Technically, yes, possible. For hundreds of reasons, it's not becoming possible in India. For other reasons, not because of technology. So, where do you see the possibility happening? And second part is insurance industry has become, specifically the medical part of it, has become a catch me if you can. Okay, that means an insurer, whether a health insurer may reimbursement a smaller problem comparatively. It's because he has to cashless makes a smaller problem because he's got access to the data directly. But a life insurance and a reimbursement product is worse, where he has to
Yeah.
wait for the patient to give his own record. Life insurance, तो पूछो ही मत. After 6 months, 9 months, he may come back and say, I don't have a paper. And
Yeah.
not that we are not aware about what happens in the hospital industry with respect to the even the live cashless cases which happens. Okay, and of course there are stories about it which we don't want to talk about the frauds part of it. So where do you see this is the negative obviously of the industry, nothing to do with technology and the EHR possibility is there. Where do you think if you were to marry these two questions, how would you like to answer it? It's a
Yeah.
tricky one.
Yeah. Ganesh, actually, in the EHR part, I think I have a very strong view. There's only one way in which it can come to India. And the steps are what he started. It's actually, in my mind, very strongly through the Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission, right? Basically,
Okay.
there is no other way. So, if you look globally, right, at the adoption of EHRs by, say, the healthcare community and correspondingly data being available to insurance companies, in any country, that evolution has only come when the government steps in. Because when the government steps in and they say, hey, there is merit in an entire ecosystem of healthcare providers, digital health companies, health insurers, and then most importantly, the patient or the policy holder, right, or the citizen of the country having access to their health data is where change comes. So over the last few years, I think ABDM is an amazing idea, right? They progress tremendously in terms of pushing out standards, right, including medical coding standards like in IC10, STOMAT drawing, HL7 fire. They've been amazing in terms of trying to push the healthcare ecosystem to adopt these standards, right, from a health data exchange perspective. But in EHR or healthcare data coded up, that push can come from ABDM. They're the right stakeholder to be able to get all the different ecosystem players to talk to each other, right, essentially, and adapt these. Now, if you look at the EHR market in India, right, it's very unique versus maybe some of the other developed markets. It's an incredibly fragmented market. There are lots and lots of smaller players. In fact, when you go from a Delhi to a Chennai to a Pune to a Bangalore, you'll find that the top dominant EHRs in that city are different, right, across different cities. So over time, what we can expect is as ABDM steps in, and ABDM is the one that gets hospitals, primary care, secondary care, tertiary care, digital health companies to adopt these standards. There'll be a set of EHRs that will start to become dominant as the data standards are opened up, which ABDM is trying to promote today. Insurers, right, the National Health Claims Exchange is coming up. Insurers, insurtech companies can then access this data and play the crucial role that they need to, right, which is underwriting, risk management, claims adjudication, healthcare management for their policy holders, and they can step into. So, as an industry, which is the insurance industry, we should strongly support the ABDM construct
Yes.
and the medical coding standards. And I would highly advocate that all insurtech companies, all insurance companies, all insurance intermediaries, at least from a healthcare data standpoint, start to adopt the same standards almost immediately. And we'll see a huge kind of flywheel kick in for what we're able to do as an industry, right? Today, we all work on redoing the basic infrastructure layers. So we're envisioning how to code up the data, how to use the data. But if the data becomes standardized, right, we can all work on the innovation layer, which is what's going to come up. So very strong opinion on where that change will come from. It's ABDM.
Good.
We should all support ABDM in a big way. Yeah.
So probably what I think I would surely agree with it because I think if the UPI is successful, is because of everybody coming into the force, specifically the government, the RBI, and the force weekend. It's one of the best products in the world, I can surely say. So something like
Yeah.
that has to happen. Now, when we're talking about EHR, you have a very strong view. Do you think similarly we can also have centralized financial records? Again, that's another pain. And now with 65% of the country having agricultural income on records, obviously there are we do have agri tax coming in, but not much is happening on that front. At least the space is, of course, it will take some time. Just picked up, but again, the central records are a challenge. So where do you think this will move? The financial records part of it.
Ganesh, I think Again, full credit to the government, right? If you look at digital public infrastructure, there's just so much work happening. It's just in different phases of
Yeah.
getting launched, getting adapted from the industry. So UPI, 100% agree with you, right? Amazing success story. It's been a game changer for financial inclusion in India, right, and payments in India.
True.
So similarly, ABDM has stepped in. There are a few different other initiatives actually, Ganesh, from the government of India. One is the account aggregator framework. So unified
Correct.
financial record, the account aggregator framework is one clear direction that's getting taken towards creating that one record, right? Where it's again there is which me as an individual I control my financial record, and if I'm going out for a loan or an insurance product, I can technically give access to my record and say, hey,
Correct.
for the sake of underwriting, you can use this data. For the sake of even claims, you can possibly use this data. And then be able to streamline the journey, right? That I, as a user, may getting access to. Similarly, just recently we've seen frameworks on lending coming up from the
Yeah.
government. Similarly, there are frameworks that are coming up on digitizing land records. There are frameworks that are coming on digitizing death certificates for the life insurance industry. And different states within India, right there, are at different levels of evolution of digitization on their
True.
side. But these are all game changers. So alternate data sources, data that's coming out from the government, that might be coming out, by the way, from a district, a city, a state, become crucial for us to adapt within the insurance industry. And we can also say, right, by the way, with data, one of my biggest points is always to say never fear data. It cannot be a 0 or 1 game, right? Sometimes companies get stuck in this paradigm to say there is not perfect data, so I can't do anything with it. Instead, after you take consent, you meet all the norms of the government of India that are coming up under the DPDP. You should make sure that you are able to access that data to provide customers with a better customer experience, right? Better insurance products, more granular and contextual insurance products. It's our responsibility as an
Correct.
industry to get that done from our side. But huge steps happening. Financial record, back to your point, account aggregator framework is one. There are tons and tons of other kind of these interfaces that are getting set up that we as an insurance industry can sit
ULI,
and parallelly
hopefully
use.
ULI should also be in place. The Unified
ULI will
Lending
also be in
Platform.
place. Absolutely. So if you look at lending, right, products like group credit life, there's EMI Tech, there is job loss income protect. There are tons and tons of products within the insurance industry that are built of, say, loans also as an industry, right, or adjacent to loans as an industry. So once we have ULI, essentially what can end up happening is the insurance industries can use the same data standards. And the India Insurtech Association, by the way, we are looking to work at the intersection of ULI and then what the insurance industry needs, right, in terms of using that data for our products. When we merge that together is where it becomes incredibly powerful, because every insurer, insurtech company, every insurance service provider can just come together and use the same data standards and focus on the innovation layer, as against focusing on the infrastructure, the data layer, which is not a useful use of time, right, for
True.
all of us. Yeah.
So interesting. So you said that digital is about 0 and 1, and you're saying that data is not about 0 and 1.
Yeah,
That's an interesting corollary.
yeah. I would say that we get stuck in a lot of cases. I'm in meetings where everybody gets stuck and says the data source is not perfect or the data cannot be used, and and they don't use perfect data. Doesn't exist, right? Perfect data is very hard to find. So if you've got the right team that understands, a combination of actually underwriters, data scientists, product managers, engineers, you can start to use it, and you'll always have a leg up in the industry, right? If
Yeah.
you're able to use some
So
data versus no data. Always at any
to
given point
the
of time.
so it
Yeah.
said that version 1 is always better than version none.
Yes, 100%. Two thumbs up.
Right.
And I constantly push everyone to say, start with something, right? You
Yeah,
don't need a
agreed.
Ferrari, start with a bicycle, right?
Right.
So that is the analogy to give. Don't wait for a
Right.
Ferrari, right? And just get stuck in waiting for it. Start with a bicycle.
True, true. Interesting. So now, since that, as a pioneer of the Insurtech Association, the Insurtech world, you can say, so I just ask one simple question. Do you think the complex products, the complex life insurance products, the high ticket ones, okay, the protection plans, etc., or even the high value health products, okay, where the sum insured is very high, premium insured, premium amount is high, where medical examinations cannot be avoided, and medical examinations obviously cannot always be on an equipment. You may have to visit the lab. Plus, the financials will not be restricted to a small one or two income tax papers. It has to be more documentation. So, how do you think, or do you think that this will remain an exception for long, or you think there will be some signs and some better journey towards this also? The high ticket cases.
So Ganesh, if we pick up a couple of these ideas, right? That's a great question. So if we pick up high ticket cases, which is I'm just going to say, let's pick up group credit life as a product, right? Like high sum assured. Basically, when there's a high sum assured or high ticket size, or these are long term loans, like a home loan, which might be a 10, 15, 20 year tenure, or a business loan with a 5 year, 7 year, 10 year tenure. That's yes.
उसमें फिर भी थोड़ा easy है because group में क्या होगा, there is a benefit of the documents being seen by the lender and he's underwritten it. So insurer के लिए उतना problem नहीं है. But if directly a guy comes at the retail level, if a Prerak Sethi says, I want 20 crores cover for my life. Okay.
Yeah.
So insurance company will say, yes, we know Prerak Sethi, but we want your documentation.
Yeah. So again, let's pick up retail term life as an example, right? And exactly the case that you mentioned. There's someone like me who comes and says, "Hey, can I get a 2 crore rupee cover?" The 2 crore rupee cover, the insurer is obviously then dependent on a reinsurer. So what they will turn around and say, "Hey, we've got to take a few different steps to safeguard ourselves, right? Number one, we've got to do health underwriting, very importantly. Second, we've got to do financial underwriting, right? Basically, to see that if you qualify for the product." Essential on right? So there are two forms of underwriting that they're looking to do. Historically, actually, Ganesh, again, I'll go back to there being a lack of automation first and foremost in the industry, right? Which has meant that when this information has changed hands between all the different stakeholders, which is say a retail customer, a distributor, an insurer, and then the reinsurer, the movement of data across all of them has been a massive challenge, right? Which is where there are delays. Right, I've seen customers that have waited. They said, "Hey, I paid you a premium check. I'm willing to pay the premium. I've agreed I want this particular product from this particular insurer." And I'm shocked that you're spending like 6 weeks sometimes to even do underwriting, right? Just customers are shocked, right? And in today's day and age where we are used to ordering something of Blinkit and it showing up in 10 minutes flat, right, at a house, customers can't seem to understand this disconnect between a large check that they've written for insurance and being told that, look, maybe I don't want you as a customer, right? I made you fill out all these forms. I spent all this time selling to you, and now I'm not sure if I can accept your risk or right? So that becomes a challenge. So my personal take is, Ganesh, I think this is going to change drastically just in the next 2 years, right? This experience for customers.
Okay.
First and foremost, the quality and digitization at the point of say, sales, onboarding, and underwriting, right? Actually, a lot of insurtech companies, intermediaries are leading the charge. So the way in which they're now collecting this data or information from customers has started to become more real time. So that's step number one. Now, what that's leading to, right? And in the future, I think they will see significant collaboration led through insurtech, where they'll, in a more seamless manner, be able to shift that information between the customer, the distributor, the insurer, and the reinsurer, all through the end, right? Through automation and workflows. So the orchestration of data or information between all the different stakeholders, including, by the way, now talking about how to access, we spoke about health data, right? How do we access more health data in more real time to be able to actually pre-populate some of the underwriting decisions that need to be taken, right? Basically, how do we actually start to do that too? So the journeys, there'll be a significant bit of automation that we see over the next 2 years. That's my take, even though high ticket size cases, because of flow of information between the stakeholders, that would be number one.
So you believe that in future, the workflow is itself going to change?
Workflow will become highly automated between all the stakeholders, which is the problem to solve for actually today. Right? The challenge is
the problem which I see.
The stakeholders.
Okay, now the workflow is one of my favorite areas. Okay, and incidentally get involved over there because an insurance company, specifically the ones with legacy, see, most of the insurers today in India are at least, let's say, last 10 years old. Nothing. So forget about the older ones. So very few insurers are very new. So most of them are at least 10 years old in the system. And they have got legacy systems. A lot of legacy data sitting in different buckets, some unknown buckets also. Okay. And then there are rules engines sitting in different programs. In fact, I see risk management as a particular function. Okay. Risk management is not integrated. Risk is a separate unit, underwriting is a separate unit, claims is a separate unit, onboarding is separate, issuance is separate. मतलब workflow में अलग-अलग buckets हैं. It's a compartment. And the digital world, unfortunately, doesn't understand compartments. There is nothing like the old workflow, which was a serial workflow, doesn't exist today. Probably the CPM PERT technology doesn't exist today to a great extent. It's all spider. Okay, spider means sub six tentacles are all parallelly going on, and suddenly where you get connected, you do not know. So you cannot say इसके बाद ये होगा, इसके बाद होगा. And most of the times, in fact, the best of companies you take, the workflow is like that. And then they are going into the insurtech world. So आ रहा है एक API यहाँ से, एक API वहां से. Then the two APIs are talking to each other. There are lots of middlewares. In fact, middleware itself is too many.
Yeah.
So if we talk about this, the workflow, uh, do you think a workflow like this will help, or will I have to say, let's keep this aside and start a new workflow?
Yeah. So Ganesh, interesting perspective, right? And absolutely accurate. What's ended up happening is, right, the core of an insurance company is insurance and not technology, right? And historically hasn't been the case. So insurers have historically invested in technology systems that have come from multiple different service providers, different companies, and then, try to patch it together, right? And you and I both know that technology is moving faster than we can build it, right, really in this world. So because of the patchwork that's actually happened, in spite of the best intent of the insurers, now they suddenly discovered that all the systems don't talk to each other. Different stakeholders have their own systems that they've built over time, which means that all we see is a significant delay in terms of automation, taking decisions, and being over dependent then on teams, right? That has to happen because the system or the platform that's been there for a while just cannot be, you can't just pull it out and throw it out, right, for a minute. So something is working. And I say with a lot of insurers, what we find in these conversations is insurers say, hey, it's a system that works. So while I like what you're showing me, it is very hard for me to pull out something that works and throw it out. Right? Especially in life insurance, where the tenure of some of these policies are, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, right? And they exist.
Yeah.
So the in-force policies, it's very hard to replace a system where everything is in there with all the data of in-force policy. So today, Ganesh, if I had to redo this, right, and say, let's hypothetically say there's a brand insurer, essentially what you want is one platform, right, where that same platform, you can build the workflows for a term life retail health insurance product, for the product factory, underwriting, distribution, claims, servicing operations, everything could get built on a single platform, but the data is again seamlessly moving between all the different functions and is built on the same data standards. That is an ideal scenario to be in, right? Because the data that you're using for underwriting, and you say, hey, my exclusion for you is, say, diabetes for a health insurance policy, right? When it comes to claim, it should automatically be able to pick up from your policy and say, hey, diabetes was an exclusion. Here's a medical code for that. And sorry, in the adjudication, you're not eligible for this, right? As an example.
True.
So all of that should be automated. So it just requires a brand new level of thinking and investment. Now, one is, how do you get rid of the legacy systems? Is the problem is hard, or the old systems is a problem that's hard. But second is, the investment is then required, right, from a team to come up and running on a brand new platform that talks across all the different functions. But having said that, the brand new trend, right, that we see actually across the board, Ganesh, there are a bunch of companies that are saying, hey, don't replace your old system, right, basically. What we will do is we will add a orchestration layer on top, right, basically. So from your core policy admin system, push up all the data one level up into an orchestration system, which is a third-party system. That third-party system will do everything, right? Automate underwriting, automate servicing, automate operations for whatever the function, whatever the process, whatever the workflow. And then once it's done, it pushes back data into the core policy admin system through an API. So orchestration is a big theme. I think it's just, that's a main theme that's kind of going to take over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Let's say insurers keep their old systems, not touch them, but move all the innovation out to the orchestration layer, right, of the orchestration platform.
Still, I personally have been seeing a challenge in that also, because whenever we talk about some product, it's like I was giving a demonstration of a workflow, a WhatsApp onboarding process to someone.
Yeah.
And next question आया, इसमें मेरा underwriting rule engine ये है. I said, boss, those underwriting rule engine I don't need to refer to, because I am completely going through a different risk management process. आपके जितने risk है, 100 में से 100 rules में से 60 rules do not exist in this, because they're already taken care of. नहीं, but before the issuance, वो जाएगा वहां पे STP. बोला STP क्या होता है? Now I'm issuing a WhatsApp policy. So that is the challenge, where a retrofit of digital technology on the existing traditional technology and traditional processes, और processes को digital इसमें retrofit होने की कोशिश हो रही है. I think that's where I see a big challenge and a mindset change required, of course.
Yeah.
And of course, everybody is scared because nobody wants to change the tables and say सब पूरे घर के बदल दूंगा, and they do not
Yeah.
know if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Hang to hang, they cannot come and hang me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a catch-9 situation. So I think that is one thing which we all have to work together as partners and sort it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so while talking about it, in fact, one of my favorite questions is and a word which has suddenly got lost somewhere. Okay, maybe 2016, 17, it was the hot thing, but now it's got lost. The word blockchain.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to ask your views whether do you see a smooth and a secure blockchain process becoming a reality in the insurance industry, the healthcare industry. Okay, so when I say healthcare, I mean the hospital industry, healthcare industry, the health insurance industry, general insurance industry, and the life insurance industry, and the service providers as a whole. Because let me give an example. When we talk about health insurance, so health insurance, for what happens? There is a healthcare unit, like private company working, saying, okay, healthcare kar lo. And then suddenly they have a tie-up, you go for a checkup and you go for a checkup. Then you say, okay, you need to get admitted. And then assume for a moment, the doctor says you need to go undergo a stenting. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, a stenting can cost anywhere between 30,000 rupees or it can go to 3 lakh rupees or more. Okay. So you do not know what is the pricing. And then the insurance company says, I will not give. And then the government suddenly comes, I got a table. The table may not be relevant for the brand. Ultimately, branding cost भी होता है, that's a separate problem. So a blockchain process probably can actually put everything in place and say कि ये stent 30,000 का use किया, you have a choice. I want to use the 30,000 and somebody will say I want to use the 3 lakh ka stent. Right. So a pharmacy will be there in the chain. So can we get entire thing? It's of course a dream which I've been talking since 2014. Unfortunately, I don't see that happening in 2024 as well. Then, so being in touch with the various startup players, etc., and the industry, do you think somebody's thinking on these lines? And what do you think is the reality for this piece?
So, Ganesha, versus earlier, I'd say the interest for using blockchain in the insurance industry has actually gone down and significantly. So, personally, I think there's more relevance for AI ML in the insurance sector, and the impact of AI ML is going to be much higher. Automation on the insurance industry is going to be much higher than, say, just the use of blockchain very specifically as a technology. With blockchain for healthcare records, right, there may be some merit, but for that to get picked up, I think it's got to be an ABDM kind of organization, right? That's got to pick that up and say, how do we think about blockchain for a health record? And that might be one of the most killer use cases, right, for it. But how do we think about that and put it out there? And I'm sure maybe a lot of the construct around what's happening in ABDM maybe built up some of the more secondary principles of blockchain, right? Essentially. Now, blockchain as an idea, some of the other principles I think are very useful in the insurance industry. This is a simple idea, right? The idea of smart contracts from within blockchain is a great idea for, say, parametric insurance. So if you've got data sources, fixed benefit products, right, in the health and life side. So if you've got specific products where there's a particular trigger and you can build a smart contract of specific triggers, whether it is, say, for a critical illness product, right? You say, hey, if you get diagnosed with a stage 3 or stage 4 of cancer, you get 1 lakh rupees, right? And that is what the insurance product is. If there is a source that comes off a verified immutable source from a blockchain or a data source that comes off, that smart contract might become easier to trigger off. And then correspondingly, the customer experience can improve drastically, right, as an idea. That's one place where I think there's still incredible relevance of blockchain. The other places, right, for example, I think pools. So terrorism pool, a NatCat risk pool, where there are a lot of industry stakeholders kind of involved, right? Again, if it's government-led, and they embrace the adoption of blockchain for all the different stakeholders that are involved and they push it and make it mandatory, then I think it can become a powerful tool for better decision-making, better adjudication, definitely increase efficiency, right, from using it, and standardization for the entire industry. But having said that, outside of that, I think blockchain is a little bit on a down low, especially in the insurance industry. Hasn't worked out well. The different places where it got used, if only some stakeholders use it, not all stakeholders use it, it is not fruitful, right? And that is the biggest challenge, which is I keep going back to saying it's either ABDM or the government that has got to pick up a use case where blockchain has to be used and then make sure all the different stakeholders, right, also adapt it, basically. Without that, it's just an incomplete solution, right, basically.
Great.
That's a challenge.
I think that makes sense. My last question to you. A simple one, where nobody's going to hold you responsible. Let's say 2028. Okay, we'll not talk about what the Prime Minister says 2047. 2028, 4 years from now, or 2027, 3 years from now. Where do you see our insurance industry is going to?
So, couple of things, right, Ganesh? I think from the non-life perspective, one of the biggest challenges that we need to solve for, which is the same challenge for 2047, is the penetration problem. Today, if you really look at it, I've got a strong opinion. India is not one country, right? You know, the insurance industry over the last 20 years has done a great job of building what I call to be the first set of insurance products. But India is incredibly diverse as a country. If you look at from an economic standpoint, socio-economic standpoint, geographical diversity standpoint, language, community, culture standpoint, there's just a lot going on. So India is really a country of many, many micro risk pools, right, basically. And what we've not done to solve the penetration problem is start to think about insurance products for these different micro risk pools, right? And the country that, by the way, has innovated from an insurance standpoint is actually China. So China is as large as India. They're the ones who really said that, look, as a country, we've got a very different problem to solve, right, than the rest of the world. So we've also got to think about very innovative insurance business models that should be allowed, right, for us to boost penetration problem and actually kind of just jump in and build a lot of different value props for the industry. So 2028 for us as an industry, what we've got to do is all the insurance companies, intermediaries, insurtech companies have got to come together, say that we've got to build, not 1, 10, 15, but thousands of products for these micro risk pools. We've got to figure out how to get it to that particular risk pool, right? Which could be in a vernacular language. So a very different touch point, could be a digital touch point, could be a physical touch point, right? Basically, how do we think about claims adjudication? How do we think about risk management for that risk pool, right? Basically. And that's where I think innovation's got to come. So if we all have to collectively as an ecosystem focus on these kind of problems, that's where innovation will kick in. And we'll also see for all the private sector players, right, profitability, because now they're focused. So today, if you'll do what the next guy is doing, profitability will be a problem, right? But if you actually pick up, 10, 20, 30 risk pools and focus on them, you will build a product that your customer really, really needs and wants, and also turn profitable in that, right, basically. So it works for everyone involved. So the goal for us collectively should be next 5 years, focus on these risk pools and demark off and start to say, what's my focus area, and build there, right? India is very large as a country, right? Each of the risk pools can be very profitable. Yeah.
Great. So one size doesn't fit all.
One size doesn't fit all. Yeah.
Super. Hey, I think thanks. It was very valuable opinions from you, and a lot of it I surely agree and accept. I like it, and let's hope we can work. Thanks a lot, Prerak, for your time, and we'll come back to you from the InsurTech world to take some help from you, and maybe reach out to the government and say, "Boss, kuch to tum karo abhi isme."
No, thank you for having me, Ganesh. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
So thanks a lot. Have a great day. Thanks for your time, Prerak.
Thank you, Ganesh.
Bye bye.